Welcome to Digital Marketing Musings. I'm Andrew McCartney.
And I'm Gaia Reed.
Every episode, we chat with industry experts to bring the latest tips, tricks, and trends in digital marketing.
This is Digital Marketing Musings, sponsored by Merkle. Let's dive right in.
Welcome back to Digital Marketing Musings, Season 3. Today, we're joined by Gary Kagawa to talk about trends, predictions, and everything marketers need to know for 2023. Gary is the Vice President of Research and Insights here at Merkle. Gary, we're so excited to have you and welcome to our show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So looking back on the past year, what were some of the primary trends that we saw play out, particularly in the digital marketing space?
We found that there are a number of things, and in speaking with a number of people, there are things that continuously evolve. But some of the things that we thought about pointing out, things that are even leading into 2023, are things like the economic seesaw that we're starting to see. It started this year. It started teetering more and more. We just don't know what will be coming about, but the idea of vigilance is going to be very key as we've watched 2022 come to fruition, and also as we step into 2023. We also think that social commerce, as a part of digital commerce in general, is going to start to continue to grow. Social commerce itself made great headway this year, and continuing into 2023 and beyond, it will become significant. But what's more interesting is that overall digital commerce will be significant. And in fact, while the number of digital consumers will grow, what's more interesting is that the growth of digital consumers will be outweighed by the amount of sales that will be happening for digital commerce and social commerce as well. The other thing, too, as we've started to see, is gaming is mainstream, and It's becoming that way. There are so many people involved. Some of our own research through our Merkle platform indicates that there are 81 million people who are actually very interested in participating in gaming regularly, and also a significant number of people who actually are hugely passionate about it. So a lot of that is really at the cusp of finding different people, like different advertisers stepping in, like Prada and also Tommy Hilfiger, to actually take advantage of the gaming universe, if you will. And then the other thing that we have started to see is, of course, trending for video is becoming so much a part of everything that we do. And as we start to look towards even a broader future, we also start to think about how video can start to play an increasing role in how we communicate, how we storytell. And I think one of the things that will be so important for us to do is really understanding how we can start to take advantage and be aware of all the new things that are starting to come about, including Netflix, who announced this past year that they're entering the ad-supported space. So
big
additionally, ways that exactly. Do I switch my subscription for Netflix?
Yep.
Don't know, but I'll have to see what I get and don't get.
Very true.
A crossover between those two last items. Didn't they also recently announce that they're getting into the gaming space?
Ooh, I haven't heard that one, but I'm not surprised.
I had heard that, but to that point, I mean, we spent a lot of season 2 talking about gaming. Mm-hmm. It was a huge trend that we were personally and professionally interested in learning more about. We talked about gaming more broadly, but then, crypto and NFTs and the metaverse.
Yeah.
It was like a 6 or 7 episode kind of mini series that, we spent so much time on because it's so different and it's so important, particularly in that like upper to mid funnel section of how brands are playing.
Absolutely. And I think through technology, we're beginning to see how we can become part of such an immersive environment where brands can come to life, where, I think we noticed a source that actually calls the avatar becoming the new consumer. So, there's such a distinction in the evolution of how we're going to market and how we start to think about not just seeing performance in the same traditional ways of upper, lower, middle funnel, but creating engagement and creating extensions of experiences that are coming to life,
Very
especially
much so.
through the metaverse.
Very much so.
But Gaia and Andrea, what do you think about the question of cryptocurrency? Because obviously that was going so well, and yet towards the end of the year, we had a few hiccups.
Quite a few. And I have some clients, nonprofit clients, who it was hitting such a market peak, and it was so prevalent just in the discourse of general society that was one of the initiatives that they really pushed through this year, of accepting cryptocurrency. But then there are, other organizations who have made even like ethical decisions not to accept it because of the like emissions or like the amount of energy used to mine for cryptocurrency. So it definitely seems to be something that each brand probably needs to make a decision on based off of like, is it worth the squeeze to set up everything that's needed in order to accept or trade in cryptocurrencies, or how big is their brand really going to play in that space in the metaverse where that's going to become the mainstream form of currencies?
Yeah, I feel like that's like the biggest question is like, where do we see the brand experiences going in the future? Crypto being tied to it, but also like crypto, you very quickly start talking about like NFTs and the different ways that brands can show up both in the metaverse. But then I'm also thinking about our conversations around like Twitch and streaming and all of those sorts of things as well. Mm-hmm. That whole series was very mind-blowing for me as we were having those conversations. Just like all the things I didn't know that I didn't know, and really should have been participating more in.
I think, though, that the economic situation associated with all of that is also very important to realize, that ultimately there needs to be more legislation, which is probably coming this year, to really help anchor this and actually solidify more of this currency asset to become more real, if you will, where it's less challenging, if you will, to, invest and know that something like what happened in the past fall could happen again. So we need to really hopefully make sure that all of this is more stable so that people can really take advantage of it.
Definitely a few key trends that are kind of like weaving into that thread of more legislation around them. The other one being privacy. I mean,
yep.
We've talked about it so much the last few years that it's kind of becomes one of those topics that no one wants to talk about anymore because we're tired of talking about it. But, Chrome still hasn't completely deprecated cookies. We're still expecting that'll be something coming along the pike sooner or later. And more privacy legislations keep getting rolled out, and we'd expect that would probably continue. But yeah, there are a lot of these like digital experiences that we still don't have a hold on, like how as a society we're going to handle them.
But I also think that some of the other things that are happening with regard to legislation that's really very interesting that's just happened is TikTok being banned from government devices.
Ooh,
so
yes.
Ultimately, that in and of itself is big, but what's bigger is, what are we going to really see a ban on TikTok across the board? Whether it's, banning it from the US. It's hard to imagine that such a huge player in the social media space could get banned, but there's challenges there, mm-hmm. right?
Well, and what's wild about TikTok is not just the whole like banning conversation, which is extremely interesting in and of itself and definitely want to come back to talk about more. But as you're talking about video and thinking about how that's changing and how quickly TikTok has had an impact on Instagram, Facebook, and having them have a response to offering these things, and the way it has started to change how we consume content is really just fascinating.
I've noticed my own attention span continuing to dwindle. Oh, the past year and a half, if something's not intriguing me, really within like a second, I'm immediately right, like onto the next short video, whether it's like, YouTube has that feature now,
Yep.
Instagram got the feature,
Yep.
Facebook has the feature. And like, even if it was banned, I'm a kind of millennial where I never downloaded TikTok and I only watch them get reposted on all of these other platforms. But it is definitely interesting how much it's influenced the other platforms.
Absolutely. And, I am personally so captivated in dog videos. Very sad. Because of my pandemic puppy, I am obsessed with all of those, but also obsessed with all the music videos that people are posting and they're dancing, because it's fun, hilarious. It gives you a real break from things that are happening in the world. It's just fun to see people enjoying themselves. I mean, there's a great balance there.
Taking it to the marketing component of it, right, is like when these brands are adopting to the new ad formats available to them, these short form videos, you can really see the difference between the brands that really understand like the tone that someone is looking for or like the feel of the video, where it feels like more of a native influencer video versus the ones that are just, they're taking their same assets, they're cutting them down and they're repurposing them, because man, do I skip those latter ones immediately.
Well, and this is making me think about was Ocean Spray and the guy that was skateboarding, and I think it was this year, maybe it was 2020, I can't remember exactly, but just like how viral that video went, and like what a branding opportunity that was for Ocean Spray to like have their name out there. I'm sure they saw I hope they saw some pretty decent increases in sales after that. But it was pretty wild to see that.
Totally.
Yeah, I think the need to really understand the medium in which a video or any ad sits within. I think you need to be as authentic as possible in order for the audiences to feel as if, you really understand them. I think from a consumer standpoint, that's critical, and also the ability to understand, as you were mentioning, Gaia, that difference in sort of life stages or generations, that too is so critical to understanding at forefront of everything we do at Merkle. It's really to understand the core of the audience and how they connect. So it's critically important to have the creative be as authentic as an expression of the brand as possible.
Something else that I think we touched on one of our quarterly trend episodes was just the continuous resurrection of the QR code. I know we all started to use it to be contact-free during the height of the pandemic, but it definitely seems like something that's really sticking around. I've seen it in a lot of direct mail pieces, trying to get people to go online and adopt more of a digital first response format. But I've also seen it in, like connected TV ads where advertisers are trying to create some intrigue with like, ooh, what's gonna be on the other end with this QR code. But it definitely seems to be sticking around maybe more than someone might have anticipated kind of in this post-ish pandemic space.
Absolutely. And in DRTV commercials for nonprofits towards the end of the year, I saw a number of them with it on. And, it brings to mind the ability for, why using the QR code. And it does provide another way of creating a response tactic to get people to connect in different ways. But I think also, to your point, it is intriguing. I think it's also equally as much polarizing, because I remember first going into restaurants and seeing that going, now I have to make sure I go phone and, open up that menu. But, I think more and more, seeing the use of it gets people, even if there's some friction there, still an opportunity to start to expand on it, find ways of making it more endemic to the things that marketers might do and offer to consumers as another response device.
And it totally is that friction point, right? Like, I just got a new phone a couple of months ago, and prior to that, I was still relatively a holdout of scanning QR codes because I would have had to download a different app that wasn't like already connected to my camera on this phone that was like 5 years old. And I was like, do I really want to waste the space on this random app just to scan a QR code?
Right.
But when you've upgraded to the new tech, the friction doesn't exist. It's so easy, and it's something that I'm engaging with like pretty frequently.
Yeah, I was in a seminar where they used it for just even getting responses or end of meeting survey, if you will. But I think sometimes you also have to make sure with anything, a landing page or a text link, to make sure that any of those actually work well, because I think that a good experience will lend itself towards, oh, this is great. I wish more people would do it, versus, from a consumer standpoint, like, I couldn't get it and it's just not working for me. So why bother,
I mean, I think that lends itself to like a topic we just talk about a lot at Merkle increasingly over the years, is this like very connected consumer experience and increasing consumer expectations over time, just exponentially, right? So if I click on a shopping link to a brand from an Instagram ad, or even like an organic post to them, and their page takes like more than a second to load on my phone, like, I'm out. I'm not sticking around anymore. Whereas just a couple of years ago, I probably had way more patience for that. And maybe it's the TikTok conditioning of, keeping my attention for such a short period of time. And it's a boring thing to talk about, to keep giving that recommendation over and over of like page load speed. It has to be so quick, but it's so important.
Well, and I mean, that goes back to a search trend that we've been talking about, for quite a while now, with like core web vitals and page load time, and that being a ranking factor that Google's thinking of. And this is very much in my wheelhouse in terms of conversations that we have with clients all the time from a search perspective.
And I'm sure they don't want to hear it anymore.
No,
they're like,
we're all collectively done. So another topic that's come up quite a bit, both over the past couple of years, but continued to come up last year as well, is corporate responsibility, DEI, sustainability, climate change, like all of these things. Like, where do we feel like we landed with this?
I think it's still evolving. I think it's important for us to be there at the front and center of it, being able to help our clients with their specific needs, but also make sure that they understand consumers' point of view. I know that, especially some of the younger generations are very, very focused on the need for companies to reflect positive DEI support, as well as being able to provide really good corporate perspectives on really managing sustainability and really having very transparent goals in that regard. So I think it's critical being being an executive sponsor of the Pride Group for Merkle. It's been really an honor to be there when we actually were announced to have made the top ranking for the HRC, which has been really exciting for us. But I think it's just amazing for what I see of Dentsu as being a leader in all of this. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to continue to be aware and make sure that we, do what we need to do to continue moving in a positive direction.
Yeah, I remember when a lot of these DEI conversations started at Merkle, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was really centered on this business case of justifying a lot of the time and effort that went into some of these conversations. And it's now feels, at least from where I sit in, my age bracket and what I'm seeing across brands, but it feels like for me and people younger than me, it feels like more of a mandate of like the minimum viable product for, evaluating an individual brand that you're purchasing from, and then going on to differentiation beyond having, great DEI practices in place, being a sustainable business, caring about climate change. That's how it feels in the marketplace.
Guy, this is making me think of, I think it was the healthcare episode where we were talking with our guests and trying to think of the full conversation, but it was the idea of like how big of an impact marketing can have across, I think it was like providers and making sure that people are coming in for care and those sorts of things. And that just was really eye-opening for me of, again, how big of an impact we actually can have in the quality of people's lives for something that maybe we don't even think about as we're doing our jobs.
I know. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, whenever there's a mistake, a lot of people who work in advertising, right, like to be like, look, we're not saving lives. At the end of the day, we're putting ads on the internet, or we're putting ads out in the world. Like, we're not saving the world, but there are bigger impacts of what we're doing beyond just the act of putting an ad out there.
100%. So
we've already talked about a few things that are pulling through into this coming year, but generally moving into 2023, we're already partway through January. Are there new trends that we haven't talked about, or like new developments from the existing trends that you think we're going to expect to happen this year?
I think there's a lot of different things. I think obviously one of the things that may temper some of the growth or some of the evolution of what we hope to do might be the economy, because
Yes.
that might limit the amount of money our clients would be willing to invest in the market. And we just have to be smarter about how we sort of connect with our consumers and trigger the interest or demand. But I think assuming we're able to get beyond that, I think that the commerce space social commerce space is so exciting. I think assuming TikTok continues to be an open playing field, I think that will start to grow. I think there's been signs that Facebook may be having a strong competitor in TikTok coming through in social commerce. And from an overall standpoint, just the evolution of video, especially streaming services, and their need to sort of balance their own economics about being able to start to offer ad-supported content. All of those things are happening very quickly, and some of the stalwart traditional quote-unquote streaming services, this happens in many different industries where the initial people first in, or companies first in line, starting to take ownership of the marketplace, starts to find new competitors coming into the market, then tempers their overall success, because new players come in, things will start to shift a bit. So with the new ad-supported platforms like Netflix, there will be some shift in ad revenue shifting to them from other areas. But I think it's just a positive opportunity for everyone to continue to keep abreast of all these changes and find ways of being able to continue to test, especially in the gaming world, where you all had the foresight to be able to see it. But the reality of all of this becoming more mainstream is so critical and so important, so that it becomes not just, people hanging out at home playing, video games, but really a much deeper and broader and immersive environment.
And I think that's such a key call out, because one of my main takeaways from our gaming conversations was the opportunity for advertisers to really just become a native part of the game, as opposed to being like an overlay or very obvious ad. So it could be great from a branding perspective for brands that are looking to get involved in that format.
And that it almost surpasses gaming completely, right? Like when our conversation got into the future of work, and if we're all just going to be our avatars in our workspaces in the metaverse, like I don't think of that as gaming in my head, and I probably won't feel like that in reality if that becomes the future.
Right.
I know we also talked a lot about retail media networks this year. We had a couple episodes on them, but it seems like there's really expected to be quite a huge explosion of funding going into this area. Do we have a sense of like, is this being redirected from different areas, or is this net new funding, or what are we thinking around retail media networks?
It probably comes from both the traditional sources of funding, but because it's a great way to intersect shoppers with shopping or, product messages, but it's also an opportunity for them to capture probably dollars from promotional budgets and so on, so that it crystallizes the opportunity of garnering different areas together, but in sort of a concerted connection in places where you want to really reach people in that particular mindset. But I even think about it from a different angle of not just that, but also Roku working with Walmart and being able to introduce shopping, if you will, being able to buy something while you're watching television,
That's interesting.
Brings right to the forefront of shopping will be always on. I mean, yes, we can always, which I do, go to my phone and order something that I'm like, oh, I forgot to buy this. But the reality is this will be ever present, no matter where you are, what you're looking to do. Shopping already on a site, but then maybe seeing a new product that you might want to search for, or, those intersections are so key, especially to be able to connect while people are in the particular mindset.
This is making me think of a conversation I had a few years ago with a client around Google Lens. And this is like taking it next level when you're talking about what you're talking like with Roku and Walmart. I think you said it was. Of like, it's literally right there at your fingertips. You don't even have to pick up your phone. Like, you can just order what you need to right then and there. Fascinating.
There have been many attempts to do that through different types of television technology, but Roku being more of a unique digital platform may have an easier time being able to create that. The cable industry tried, but not as well.
Right.
But I think it just underscores the innovation that people are seeking to really capitalize on, finding the right moments, which could be at any time.
Right.
The Charter newsletter just came out this morning showing a graph that there have been more patents in this past year than like ever before in history, like one of the highest years, only followed by the previous year. So it's this interesting note around innovation and how there's just this explosion, not just obviously in digital media, but this, pent up energy of that's being released post-pandemic of all of these ideas or new ways people have found to do things.
And this might be skipping ahead a little bit to our spicy takes section, but I am very curious to see if, because of the times that we're living in terms of inflation and those sorts of things, if we don't get some really creative problem solving that come from it. I'm actually expecting that we do. And it could be a really good time for innovation, both from like digital marketing, but also exactly what we're talking about with like new patents and things like that, where people are looking to problem solve even on limited budgets, finding to like maximize their visibility for their brands. Creating new products. So it could be a really fun time. So trying to find the silver lining out there.
I know the world's been completely abuzz with ChatGPT. Have you guys played around with this tool?
Oh man.
It's like
this one is like, oh, this is scary. But exciting, but scary.
Yeah, like an AI chatbot tool. And I had seen some articles come out around in the search space, Bing has always kind of been this like second tier player to Google, obviously being very dominant in it. But even Microsoft looking at this being like, oh, could we use this chatbot or like, you know, the AI powering it to help power Bing results, or Microsoft search results. But I definitely totally expect that it's a continuous positive feedback cycle where the more of these innovations that are coming out, the more people look at it and they're like, you know what? I've got a problem that'll help solve.
Yeah,
absolutely. I do think what is interesting as you identify the patents, you know, coming out from the pandemic when people were forced to have to live in a different world in their homes, not interconnecting, could have been a great sort of seed for, you know, innovation to take place. So hopefully that, you know, despite the economy, there's going to be more opportunity of new ideas coming up with ways in which we could optimize what we have or build something better that might not be as expensive as the way we might do things currently, could be really an opportunity for the future. So I think, Andrea, you're so right. That there's,
fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Good things coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as Andrea teased, we definitely want to get any spicy takes, hot predictions that you have for the industry or broader. I know we've talked about, you know, TikTok potentially being banned nationwide, not just on government devices, but any other spicy takes that any of us have. I'll speak from my own perspective of, you know, last year, I guess for like the first half of the year, all we could talk about was supply chain issues and how everything was disrupted. It was taking, you know, over a year to deliver a couch. And just this past month, I know you guys have probably heard about it, right? The avian flu going around at Wegmans, at our local Wegmans. It used to cost $3 to get two 18 packs of just the standard stock white eggs, nothing fancy. Within like a week, they were up to $5.38, and then they just jumped up to almost $10. So there's definitely still some pressure on subsegments that, whether or not it's not caused by the initial supply chain disruption during the pandemic, there are definitely some areas that are struggling.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, I was thinking eggs when you were talking about that. I was also hoping for, you know, milk that's no longer $7 for, you know, organic ultra pasteurized milk, that we could actually pay like $4 again, you know, something like that. But I have heard also, though, that there's expected greater supply of cars. So because of chips and other things becoming more available. So who knows? I think, you know, supply chains will probably continue to have their ups and downs with regard to the different types of things available, might be more available versus others. But I do think that these will all start to iron themselves out, but it'll take a couple of years.
Yes, that's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be immediate.
Right.
Yes.
Sadly.
I will go ahead and make the spicy prediction that given that so much of the supply chain disruption was due to like port inaccessibility and difficulty just getting things in and out of the country, that we'll see more US-based like end-to-end supply chain reestablishment to try and minimize some of that future risk that could happen if such a situation were to come about again. But it would take a few years for sure.
And I think there was, in some of our talk before, there was definitely some consideration that coming back to the US, starting to build or develop things or starting to bring that production back into the country will start to help balance out some of the needs that we have as well. It's been interesting to see that the global nature of what we were thinking about has its problems, right? And so there are challenges that, unfortunately, who knew we could predict.
Right.
But I do want to also say that I think crypto will recover, but it's not going to be fast. I think there's a lot of legislation that needs to be put into place, but it grew and became so large and so generating so much discussion and talk that it's not going to go away, but it's not going to, rebound as quickly as we would like it to. But I think it's important that I'm assuming that it will be coming to fruition in the next few years as it gets more grounded and, establishes itself in better ways.
Well, these are some really great topics that we've been talking about today, and a lot of things that our listeners should be aware of and thinking about as they are heading into 2023. So, especially as we're finalizing roadmaps and budgets and all of those sorts of things. Gary, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and your insights. We really appreciate it and hope to have you on our episode again at some point in the future.
Thanks so much. Love to.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Digital Marketing Musings. If you would like to connect with us, DM us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @Merkle.
As always, we are so grateful for our listeners. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review us, and tell a friend about the show.
This episode was produced by Merkle with sound and video editing by Craig Zagorski. Our team includes copywriting by Annika Schließman, graphic design by Garrett Rubel, website support by Bella Paul and Emily Chu, and social media and promotion by Gina Astrop, Andrea Ratner, and Lily Williams.
Until next time, I'm Andrew McCartney.
And I'm Gaia Reed. Bye!